Good morning. We're live Friday morning coffee with Rich. This morning I'm joined by Jason Crotteau. Jason, did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Man, I'm nailing it. Here in a minute, I'm going to welcome Jason to the show and read his impressive bio. But before we do, we got to pay the bills here at American Warrior Show by talking about our amazing sponsors. And they truly are amazing. Most of these sponsors we've had for years. They've been really good to Mike Seeklander and I, and we're very thankful to have them as sponsors of the American Warrior Show and Coffee with Rich. We have sponsors like Century Martial Arts, makers of the Bob XL. Bob XL is the body opponent bag, extra long so that you can actually kick Bob's legs. He doesn't mind, I'm sure you. You can also shoot Bob. He makes an amazing three-dimensional target. Take him to the range. You can put a gi top on Bob and work your lapel chokes. You can work your lateral vascular neck restraint. Bob is an amazing opponent. You can check out the links to all of our amazing sponsors by clicking on the American Warrior Show link that I've provided in today's show notes. Click that link. It'll take you to the AmericanWarriorShow.com, and you'll be able to click the links to all of our amazing sponsors. Another sponsor I love to talk about is APPHemp.com. That's Appalachian Standard. They are makers of the finest CBD products money can buy. My good friend Jesse Ross and his amazing family are artisan hemp growers in the mountains of Asheville, North Carolina. They have salves, they have tincture. If you want to sleep better, have better cognitive function, help those joints heal better as you age, I can assure you that the AppalachianStandard.com is amazing. Actually, it's APPHemp.com. But there's a deep discount for watchers of today's show. Please check out the links in today's show notes. We also have Cool Fire Trainers. Jason will attest as being I think a full-time firearms instructor. Are you not, Jason?
Getting close.
Getting close, yeah. That ammunition prices have been pretty doggone rough lately. So pick up a Cool Fire Trainer and take your dry fire game to the next level. It's your gun. It's your sights, your trigger. All you got to do is replace the barrel and the recoil spring, and you're off and running. We also have Mountain Man Medical. That co-branded trauma kit I've been talking about forever is finally available. It's on the shelves for order. And even if we run out, you can back order it, but it's got some amazing products in it. We put it together with my good friend, MARSOC operator, Justin Carroll, and Brian McLaughlin, former Navy corpsman. And it's everything you need for the traumas that life's throw at you. You want to show love to your family this Christmas season, pick them up a co-branded trauma kit with Mountain Man Medical and the American Warrior Society. We also have Precision Holsters, maker of the Ultra Appendix holster that I wear every single day, as well as an amazing tactical belt. I believe that's taking care of the sponsors. But last but not least, AmericanWarriorSociety.com. If you want to join the most amazing self-defense community around the world, as a matter of fact, we have members in Israel, South Africa, Belgium, the UK, I can't even remember where, Australia. They're all over the globe, as well as right here in the good old US of A. Argentina, I think we've got like an admiral down there in Argentina. So shout out to you, sir. Hope you're on this morning. Jason, let's welcome some folks to the show. Tony is on from Brunswick, Georgia. Orenda, good morning. She says, good morning to both of you from Maryland. My good friend Dave Brothers is on, coin number 1997. He is on deck. Gerald is on. Please like and hit that share button. Gerald is coin number 952. You want to find out what a coin number is, you're going to have to check out the American Warrior Society. Robert says, good morning, gentlemen. Jason, good morning, and welcome to the show, sir.
Morning, fellas.
Now, Jason Crotteau, let me welcome him to the show by reading his bio. Jason lives and works in Central Wyoming. He has been involved in self-defense training, both as a student and instructor since 2005. Training in multiple disciplines, he brings a wide range of experience to the table. Driven by the belief that we have a responsibility to ourselves and our communities, he has dedicated the teaching to safety and self-reliance. New to 2019, Jason unveiled the new all-purpose rifle course. This is the first time an instructor has partnered with a manufacturer to teach the full potential of both student and product. Jason is a certified NRA, combat-focused shooting, and USCCA instructor. He holds credits in small unit tactics, unarmed, and knife defense, trauma aid, as well as combat tracking and escape and evasion. He is the owner and lead instructor of Wyoming Tactical and Lucid Optics Pro Shooter. Good morning, Jason.
Morning, Rich. How are you?
Good, sir. And Jason and I met back in Las Cruces, what, about 4 years ago?
Something like that. 4 or 5 years ago. It's been crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir, it has. Let's see. Mr. Mike Seeklander's on. Shooting Performance is on. Good morning, Mike.
Morning, Mike.
Ed is on. Nancy is on. John is on. And me and Mike Seeklander bumped into you at a restaurant in Wyoming out of the clear blue. Isn't that weird?
That it was weird. It was funny. We were walking out, and I happened to see Mike's truck, and I saw the American Warrior Society sticker on it with Oklahoma plates, and I walked back in thinking, I wonder. And there you guys are sitting.
Yeah, that was a cool trip. I think that was my first time to Wyoming. You got a beautiful state up there.
Didn't you guys go? You were hunting coyotes up there.
That's right. Yeah, it was a great trip. Jason, what does your bio overlook, brother?
Boy, I don't even know. I did some contract work from 2003 to 2006, working for DynCorp. Did a lot of private security, executive protection type stuff, both here and overseas. That's kind of the only thing that I don't put in there, just because I want people to come to me because I'm kind of a gun geek, self-protection geek, and that's why I do it.
How did you get into firearms, man?
So after I got done doing executive work, I kind of fell out of it, screwed around a little while, and then it was actually Michael Bain that pulled me back in and said, "Hey, I got this class going on. You want to go?" So he took me down to Gunsight, and I got to train for a couple of days with Kyle Lamb, which was way cool. And all of a sudden, it was like, "Hey, I want to do this again." So I spent the next 3 or 4 years building up Wyoming Tactical and starting to work on getting my instructor credentials for everything that I possibly could. And I wanted to go well beyond the basic. The main thing for launching my company was, at the time, I came back from that and I started looking for more training. And of course, Wyoming had nothing, NRA basic, that kind of thing. So what I understood was, hey, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to do it myself. And that's kind of how Wyoming Tactical got started. Oh, I lost
what sorry about that. What do you guys offer at Wyoming Tactical, Jason?
So we got several classes going right now. Kind of our flagship for a long time was the intuitive defensive shooting. That was actually developed by Rob Pincus and has evolved over the years. But over the last probably 3 years, we really started incorporating more courses that were designed by me and with the help of a few other people. Our flagship now is probably the all-purpose rifle, as well as the pistol optics. The difference between what we're doing versus kind of what else is out there is where the student will come in and pay the tuition, they're going to show up and get the equipment, get the ammunition, get the training, and at the end of it, they get to go home with the gear that they've trained on.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, Mike Seeklander just sent me a private message complaining about the mute button. Hey man, I have a love-hate relationship with that mute button. Sorry about that, Jason. What advice would you give to someone who's new to shooting firearms?
So somebody who's new, and this is what we see a lot, and I'm sure you guys do. Everybody goes out and they watch the YouTube videos and they go out and they buy the latest, greatest gear because these companies have convinced them, hey, if you buy our stuff, you're going to be a better shooter. Forget that. Go seek out a quality instructor. Go train with them, because if you go and you call them up, you talk to them, they're going to say, hey, I've got XYZ gun, come try it out, see what you like. I see so many people coming into classes with, hey, I just bought this gun, and they get through half of the class and they end up hating it because it doesn't fit them, doesn't work right for what they're doing. Don't go buy a bunch of stuff before you've had some kind of instruction and tried out a lot of different things.
That's a great point, man. And you know, one of the things that we always talk about is stay within inside of a family of guns, I think is the term that Mike coined, and meaning, you know, everything from the Glock 26 to the Glock 34 will fit in the same holster. So
sure,
that's good. And magazines all interchange with the Glock too. I mean, I'm not a salesman for Glock, but I think that And the only way that you can find what works for you, is probably go to a range and rent some guns if you can. Let's see. The next question I wanted to ask you, brother, is you got a lot of time instructing, and I wanted to ask you, what makes a great instructor in your opinion?
Probably the best instructors are the best students. One of the things that I do is I try and seek out training from different individuals, different philosophies, different schools of thought, and go out and train as much as I possibly can and be the student, learn as much as I can, because I want to bring the newest, latest, greatest information to my students. If I'm not out there being taught and trained and learning new things from different people, I'm not bringing the best information to my students. So I would say the best instructors are kind of the forever students.
I think that's a great idea. There is a downside to that. And maybe we could explore that a little bit. And what I mean by that, Jason, is you go to Mike Seeklander's class, he tells you to grip the gun this way. You go to, let's say, Vogel's class, and he tells you to grip the handgun this way. You get all this conflicting information, and sometimes we see students come to our class like, well, I don't know, this guy's really good and this guy's really good, and which one should I listen to? How do you deal with those when you hear that kind of feedback?
So that's actually pretty easy. Just because I'm getting conflicting information, just because I'm getting different ideas from different instructors, doesn't mean I have to use all of that. But I have that stashed away in the back of my mind. So if I have a student with a problem, I may have, hey, I learned this from this guy. This may work for you. It doesn't maybe necessarily work for me. It may not be what I'm teaching, but it may be a solution for one particular student.
Yeah. Ted says the best instructors are the best students. He said that's good advice. Yeah, it is good advice. And I see that more often than not. I had Karen Whitlock on the show, I think it was last Friday, maybe this Monday, Jason. And she's a devout training junkie like you, man. And she attends everything that she can get her hands on. And I think that makes you a more well-rounded instructor at the end of the day, because that depth of knowledge is incredibly important. Would you agree?
Well, and one of the things too, okay, so one of the things I tell my students is, if you want a vetted instructor, one of the first things you ask them is, what have they changed their mind on? What have they involved in their training? Because if you get the guy that says, well, what are you talking about? I've been teaching this for 20 years. Why would I do anything different? That's kind of a clue, right?
Yeah.
But if you get somebody that, yeah, okay, I've changed my mind on a whole bunch of things because I learned this, because this, somebody developed this new product that made things different, the way that we work this way. There's all kinds of reasons. One of the things, advancements in ammunition technology. Okay, we always used to teach, you want that bigger caliber, you want that more knockdown power, but over the last decade or so, bullet technology is kind of caught up to where is there really any discernible difference between 9mm and 40 and 45 as far as self-defense goes? So it makes it a lot easier for people to choose a gun that fits them, that they're comfortable with, not necessarily worrying about, well, I have to have this caliber. That's one of those things that I've changed my mind on.
So you used to be of the mind you need a 40 or 45. Now what else have you changed your mind on, Jason?
All kinds of things. So magnification is a good one. I got into this discussion yesterday. I always used to kind of think, oh yeah, more magnification is better. But over time, and I learned more of this from competition than from doing instruction or whatever, but magnification isn't always your friend. And we always tend to overdrive our optics, meaning we always try and magnify things probably more than we need to. And more magnification doesn't necessarily, it isn't always better. It's physics, it's a trade-off. More magnification, you get less field of view, you have lower resolution, and you can't get around that. So back off your magnification a little bit. I'll bet you'll see better.
Yeah, great point. Now, as far as let's say someone is wanting to become an instructor like you out there at Wyoming Tactical, what advice would you give that person starting out today?
Well, I went into it way backwards, so don't follow my path. But look at somebody like, Seeklander's a great one. He's got his instructor development course, and I would almost say to go there first. And reason being is because you're not going to be learning any particular curriculum. You're going to be learning how to be an instructor. And that's definitely one that if I had the chance, I'd go back and take again, because it does teach you to present material better. It teaches you how to talk to students better. It's learning, understanding how people learn. And it was a fantastic course.
Good. Glad you enjoyed it. Matter of fact, we've got 2 coming up, and one in October and one in November, but they're both LAO courses. But those are a lot of fun. I enjoy those. What piece of advice, or what new piece of advice do you give? Because I asked this question, Jason, before I even get there. Let me preface it with this. With the things that have happened in 2020 and then start of 2021, and if this is the road that we're on, there's a lot of people jumping into concealed carry, right? So you're a concealed carry instructor. What advice would you give to that new CCW guy or gal?
All right, so this might be a little counterintuitive, but I would tell them, go the route of the gray man. Try to be, get your concealed carry, train as much as you possibly can. Understand that mindsets are changing. One of the things that I've heard quite a bit lately is what they're calling state-sponsored violence, where you've got your Antifas, your BLMs that are committing acts of violence, essentially without repercussions. That's kind of a scary thing for us, and not something we've ever really had to worry about in this world. That's changing. So one of the things I'm going to tell people, everybody wants to go be tactical, and they want to have the gun T-shirts, and they want to have the 511 pants, and get rid of that stuff. Take the stickers off your vehicle. Try to be as inconspicuous and as possible. Make people forget you exist, because you are less likely to be a target of violence if they don't think that you oppose them, or that you're not going to be a risk to them.
No, I think that's a fantastic idea. Matter of fact, we had Manhar on here from South Africa, and some of the things that they talked about is in their response to the unprecedented levels of rioting and destruction that happened there. Was take the stickers off your vehicle. This is for the good guys. Stickers off your vehicle. Wear a mask. Wear a ball cap so CCTV can't spot you. Don't take any pictures. Because what you may have to do in some of those situations is pretty extreme to save your family and everything. And Jason says, I'm going to put this up there because it's great advice. Hide in plain sight.
Right.
I think that's phenomenal advice. I don't wear a lot of tactical kit. I just want to look like the average dude that I am. And if anything happens, I want it to be a complete and utter surprise. Because, speed, surprise, and violence of action is an absolutely real thing. And I think that's solid advice. And one that I've asked that question a lot, Jason, and nobody's really said that. So I think people need to hear what you're saying this morning. Tell us about your relationship with Lucid Optics, man. What is that like?
So I kind of fell in with Lucid about 6 years ago. I went to one of their long range clinics just to go check it out, see what they did, see what they're all about. I'd never heard of them, which was surprising because I lived 2 hours away from their headquarters. After that, started hanging out with those guys a little bit more, trying out their stuff. Ended up becoming one of their pro shooters. I'm shooting long range precision matches. And in the process of all that, I ended up starting a relationship and marrying their operations manager. So I'm kind of tied in. I don't, I pretty much use Lucid almost exclusively, at least in public. But no, it's been a great relationship, and that's kind of part of how the all-purpose rifle course started. Was they have an incredible LPVO 1-6 scope, and we paired that with a Shaw rifle. We use Shaw Precision for the rifles, and developed a course off of that based on the fact that the AR-15 and 5.56 is probably the most versatile weapon ever made on Earth. Just the sheer variety of applications for that rifle that it does extremely well. And paired with the LPVO, you get the entire range of what that weapon is capable of.
Do you know what the MSRP is on that LPVO?
With the mount, you're looking at about 750, 800 bucks, depending on where you're looking.
Nice. Legit. Skip has put a link in there to your Facebook page, Wyoming Tactical. Thank you, Skip, for doing that. I'm sure Jason appreciates that.
Absolutely.
Hey, one of the things I've been reevaluating with the long range precision game, a friend of mine who will be a guest on the show here in a week or so, Zach. He's a former Marine Corps Scout sniper and was a SWAT sniper and teaches some of his courses. He invited me to attend, and I did, and it was an amazing clinic. But what I'm getting at is I always kind of poo-pooed on the long-range application for a self-defender. I'm like, how are you really going to be able to defend a shot, 200 yards and beyond? Like, I mean, even 50 yards and beyond, it's probably going to be difficult to defend the legality of that shot. And then again, I go back to, Jason, what we saw in South Africa. And I don't know if you were aware of some of the tactics that the civilian defenders were using, but they would have guys with 12 gauge shotguns firing rubber bullets. And then behind them, they would have guys doing Overwatch, and the guys doing Overwatch, had their LPVOs. And if they saw somebody in the crowd that wasn't throwing rocks, that was armed with a rifle, as soon as they took aim, it was pop, and putting them down. So I'm like, yeah, okay, I could see that being an option. What are your thoughts on that, sir?
Well, okay, so look at it this way. I ask every student when they come to a class, especially with the all-purpose rifle, because we do talk about self-defense. And yeah, you're talking about that 200, 300 yard shot being self-defense. Well, here's the thing. I ask people why they come in. And some people, and most people are like, well, I wanted to learn more about it. Hey, I wanted to walk out of here with a really cool gun that I got to build myself, right? Mm-hmm. But then you get the guy that's really thought about this. You get the guy that, hey, I live in the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma, and when I hear that bump in the night, I'm not going for my Glock 17. I'm grabbing my AR-15. I get that. I live in that rural environment where, and to be fair, a lot of the threats that we deal with are four-legged and not two-legged, but we have had that. We have had the meth head come crawl through our pasture, and he's on the shop before we even realized he was there. But the AR-15 is such a versatile platform, and when you talk about the long range, that's kind of it's a skill and a passion all to its own, because the stuff that we're doing when we do the long range clinics, and the ones that I do with Lucid, so we'll start the students out, and a lot of these guys have never touched a precision rifle before. And we get them set up, we get them zeroed on the range, and by the end of the day, we have them first round hits at a mile. And that's a whole nother game. But it tends to get people thinking, and we do a lot of them are like hunter preps. These guys are getting ready to go on the hunt of a lifetime, and they want to know exactly what they're doing. So there is application. You look at the world again. We'll look at the world we live in. At what point are you going to have to go and hunt to be able to live? And having those skills at long range are going to be invaluable.
No, I don't disagree with any of that. Just to add emphasis, I think there's a good tactical application of hunting that people are finally coming to grips with. Like, man, okay, there's a lot of the same things I may need in a tactical environment. I can learn those skills as a hunter, which I think is good. I guess specifically I'm speaking to the civilian 5 elements of lawful use of self-defense, using lethal force on somebody with a precision rifle. I think it's a small window of application, but it is one that if you don't have it covered and haven't thought about it, you don't want to try to figure it out on the fly, right, Jason?
Right. Well, and consider look at like the LA riots, 20 years ago, and you had the Koreans up on the roof with their M1s.
Yeah.
There's your application right there.
Yeah. Actually, almost 30 years ago. That was 1992, believe it or not. Crazy.
And you're making me feel old.
Yeah, I remember I had just graduated from high-risk personnel course and bought my first Glock 17 30 years ago. And there was no concealed carry permits. And I'm like, yeah, I don't care, man. I'm not getting drug out of a vehicle and foot stomped on national television. Bruce says, good morning, gentlemen. AWS coin number 481 from Michigan. Good morning, Bruce. Glad to have you on the show. Yeah, I'm glad we talked about the long range application for the self-defender because, you know, I'm in a similar position. I have 14 acres here in very rural East Tennessee. You know, response time is 30 minutes away. And like I said, there's a lot of coyotes. We've spotted a mountain lion on our property before. Right. Not on our property, but my wife and I were hiking behind our property and saw one back there. So yeah, it's more likely to be a four-legged critter, but I have had the meth head come and try to steal my truck and bumped into him out there in the parking lot. That was not real good. But I want to ask you too, man, is from being your experience being a contractor, Jason, you know, and watching the events unfold in Afghanistan, what are some of your thoughts? What things come to mind?
Honestly, the whole thing kind of makes me sick. And the reason is because I watch how this is going down, and the best word that I can come up with for everything is unnecessary. The way that this was done, it was so unnecessary because you look at it, anybody with a shred of common sense is going, that's not how you do this. We could have very easily gotten all of our people out. We could have held on to Bagram and had that foothold, even if it was, you know, minimally maintained, just having that presence, just to be able to keep an eye on things. As it is now, that chaos, what scares me is where it could go. You've got players like Russia and China that are probably dissecting our technology as we speak. You've got Pakistan as a potential threat. What if the Pashtun people decide to rise up? Now Pakistan's got a real problem. And what happens if nukes fall into the hands of the Taliban because of that? There's just so many different ways this could go. Not to mention you've got Iran, who, you know, what did CNN say? They're chanting death to America, but they're really friendly. Yeah, they're really friendly right until they shoot you in the face. It's a scary deal, and we have no idea what the consequences of this are going to be. All we can do is kind of be on our toes. And I guess the only thing, what makes it worse is that things are kind of so horrific here, with a lot of things going on, the riots. I mean, fortunately, those have calmed down to an extent, but it doesn't take much to get those to flare up again. So it's a scary world, and anything that you can do to be more prepared is, you know, good on you.
Well, yeah, we saw, you know, there's the runoff election in California, and we saw someone attack Larry Elder on the street the other day. And, you know, people say, well, the riots have kind of died down, but I would remind the viewer and listener of today's show this: we still have all the officer-involved shootings from 2020 are fixing to play out in 2021 and 2022. The trial of Kyle Rittenhouse is going to be national media. The shooting of Rashad Brooks, who fired his taser at the officer Rolfe. I mean, you have to understand, we're going to go through this again. It's going to be the riots 2.0 or 3.0 coming up, and you need to be prepared for that. And another thing I would say too, Jason, is I think there's a lot of people that go, yeah, but why are you talking about geopolitics on a self-defense show? And I would remind the folks that the world is interconnected in ways that maybe you and I can't fathom. And just tomorrow will be the 20th anniversary of the September 11th. And who knows what may or may not happen here in the States or around the world by those that wish to do us harm. I would also talk about something too, Jason, that you brought up, and that is Iran. You know, now that we're left Afghanistan, we have no footprint there, and not a single country and the surrounding Afghanistan is allowing us to fly drones out of their country to keep a watch on them. They're not allowing us to put a base there, nothing. So the fact that we gave up that strategic piece of land just absolutely is mind-boggling to me.
It's a scary deal.
And again, your point about the long-term implications of this, they can't be good. Now, if you would have told me on the morning of September the 11th, I was a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps, and I remember we were in the office watching this stuff, watching the planes hit the buildings, and I'm just like, as soon as I saw the second one hit, I'm like, okay, we're at war. There's no question about this. Now, if you'd have said 20 years later, hey, Rich, guess where we're going to be? We not only gave the Taliban the country, and everything that means to them. Like, I just saw the brutal beatings that they gave 2 journalists for trying to cover the women's protest. If you haven't seen the horrific beatings and bruises on those 2 journalists, man, you need to. These people are savages, and I have no problem calling them that. That's exactly what they are. Their opinions about women are, it doesn't make me xenophobic, Jason. Would you agree?
No, absolutely not. And the idea that we thought that we could go in and change a 3,000-year-old culture. I think that was one of our biggest mistakes with the whole thing, is thinking that we can go in and make them us. They don't want to be us. People don't understand, and they need to realize that this is an entirely different culture from what we know. And until you realize that and understand why these people live the way they do, you're not going to change them. And why would you? And think about it from this perspective. How would you feel if a foreign power came in and tried to change our culture in the way we lived, in the way we thought? You'd fight too. So I don't necessarily blame them for wanting us out. However, the fact that we went in originally in 2011 to depose the Taliban and get rid of them, and 20 years later, we are leaving with the Taliban in charge, probably even more so than they were when we went in the first time.
Oh, without question. That's because think about it. And India is really upset. We've talked on this show many times about how you have to triangulate the news now. You can't just watch Hannity and Tucker Carlson and all the folks on Fox. You can't just watch OAN. You can't just watch CNN. You got to watch the BBC, Reuters, Al Jazeera, and somewhere in that is the truth.
Right.
And I was watching the news in India the other day, and they are really pissed at America because what we have done, strengthening their mortal enemy, Pakistan, because Pakistan is completely in bed with the Taliban. And another thing that you mentioned a second ago, Jason, was, this idea that these people don't think like us. And it's okay to say, I think it was Robert Egerton, maybe, that wrote the book, Six Societies. Some societies develop a culture that is incredibly toxic. And the culture that the Taliban is putting in place there is a very toxic culture, not just to women, but minorities of any stripe, especially gays, Jews, Christians. They have no tolerance for any of that. But we are supposed to be tolerant of them. I think we need to be intellectually honest with each other and call a spade a spade.
Right. Well, and we made the mistake when we went in there. We were labeling individuals as terrorists. What we never did, and I don't think a lot of people realize this, the United States never listed the Taliban as a whole as a terrorist organization.
We did until 2017, and for some reason we took them off the list.
Right. Well, and why did we do that? Because what we did is we legitimized them. That was probably one of the biggest mistakes we've made. Because now we have no recourse.
Exactly. And I would love to know the why behind we pulled them off. And I have a suspicion it has something to do with getting Bo Bergdahl back. Because we released 5 Taliban prisoners from Guantanamo.
Right.
To get Bo back. And I guarantee you there was something diplomatic in that as well. Tell me what your thoughts are, Jason, as far as where is all this lawlessness going?
I wish I knew. Unfortunately, my crystal ball is pretty cloudy as far as that goes. What I look at it, and I look at it through the prism of history. and I look at the way our nation was founded and the level of tyranny that we accept from our government now would not have been acceptable 240 years ago. And it saddens me that most of our society is willing to roll over and accept this. You're American. You descended from people that founded a country. Start acting like it. But we're also in that position. Nobody wants to be the martyr. And unfortunately, I think that's why we kind of just keep giving ground.
I think there's a line in the sand, though, at which people will be pushed no further. And that's what, Biden's mandate for vaccinations for all federal employees, contractors, et cetera, may be one of those positions where people, and I know that this happened yesterday. There's a DOE SRT trainer who said, I'm a contract employee to teach these guys how to shoot. I'm not anti-vax, but I'm not going to take it. And so he put in his resignation yesterday. I think you'll see more of that over time. And again, I've been vaccinated. I'm not anti-vax. So I'm anti-tyranny. Like you said, Jason,
right.
Don't tell another person what to do. That's what makes this country so great.
Well, and it's so hard because what we're dealing with is an administration that all last fall, when up to the lead up of when they started releasing the vaccines and started administering them, we don't trust these because they're Trump's vaccines. But now all of a sudden that they're the administration in power. Well, no, they're great. It's the double speak, and I think and even the whole COVID thing overall. People are mistrusting everything because the data has been so manipulated and so skewed. Nobody's sure what to trust as far as the data is concerned. They keep telling us trust the science. Well, give us the actual science and not your politicized numbers of it.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I want to speak to that briefly if I could. When Mike and I put out, I think, our first COVID podcast, like in February of last year, before anybody was really talking about it, the government hadn't said a word, and we were talking about it. I made a point that I said, right now the data is really fuzzy. At some point in the future, we will have clearer data we can make better decisions on. But with the data that we have now, we can safely make a couple of assumptions. But now that the data has become clearer, I think we need to use that data, because we've got 18, 19 months of this so far, Jason, or more. Approaching 2 years, I should say. So why not look at it? And on that vein, I'll say one final thing, and I'll turn it back over to you. And that is, we're putting together American Warrior Society reading list, or a suggested reading list for those that would like it. And one of the books that I put on the reading list is How to Lie with Statistics. And I think that's important for people to read that book and wake up to the ways you're being manipulated with data. And it's a great little read. And if you haven't read it, it's only like 100 pages, but you'll read this and go, oh my God. And then you'll look at every time you see the news media presenting you with data, you'll look at it and go, oh, okay, I see what you're doing here.
Right. Well, and anybody who's taken a statistics class, college level statistics class, will understand. I mean, polls, you were taught to generate the outcome and make your statistics support your outcome. They do it all the time, and especially these political pollsters. They manipulate how the poll is going to be answered by the questions they ask. Nobody ever wants to say, hey, are you in favor of euthanizing adorable Labrador puppies? Well, no. But, oh, wait a minute. These are, they were born diseased and aren't going to be able to survive past a few days anyway. They don't tell you that part. And I know that's kind of an extreme, weird example, but I mean, you get the point. The way they'll ask a question will manipulate the answer that they get. And they're taught this early.
Well, yeah, and I see that from both sides of the aisle. I'll see Nancy Pelosi voted to take something from veterans. And then if you read into it as well, she didn't support House bill, blah, blah, blah. And like, okay, well, what is in House bill, blah, blah, blah. And it's a bunch of crap that nobody would want to support. And one of the provisions, item number 127 said, give veterans an extra $12 a month. I'm making it up, but I see this from both sides. Trump is the devil, orange man bad because he supported this, and you look into it and it was really good. But there was one part in there that, he wanted to step on a puppy. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
It is. It's horrible.
But let's do this, Jason. Let's unpack a little bit of what can the average person watching or listening to today's show, what can they do to make themselves harder to kill?
Harder to kill. Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to train some more. One of the things that we talk about, like the motto that we have at Wyoming Tactical is empowerment through self-reliance. Be as self-reliant as you possibly can. Have all of the skills that you could possibly think of that are going to keep you alive, keep your family alive, make you prosper and thrive. A big part of that is self-defense. And unfortunately, self-defense, firearm skills, medical skills, even, hunting, gardening, those types of skills, they're all perishable if you don't use them. So keep up on your training. Keep training as much as possible. You mentioned the Cool Fire. Any kind of training aid that you can get your hands on that gives you more repetitions without the expense is a good thing. But ultimately, the more skills that you have and the more skills that you are fluent in, the less stuff you need, because the more you can adapt and improvise in your environment. Harder to kill means being able to do a lot more with a lot less.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's great advice. And Tony says, I just put in my fall garden. And that's another skill. We talked about hunting, gardening, communications. What are you going to do when the cell phones go down? Is ham radio going to be something you need to learn? I don't know, right. Maybe. Skip says 14 days to flatten the curve is now 3 shots to keep your job. Wow. Yeah, it certainly seems that way. But, another skill that I've gotten into over the past couple of years is lock picking. Yes. There may be a time when you, as a civilian defender, need to know how to non-destructively breach a doorway or a lock, or destructive breaching. You may need to have bolt cutters and know how to use them. You need, a hooligan tool. And I know that sounds crazy, but you just never know with what you're going to face, right?
No, absolutely not. And that's something that's another skill that I've been working on as well. And what I'm starting to find out is that, we always talk about, that thing's locked up tight, right? No, nothing's really locked up as tight as you would think. It keeps the honest people out. And that's about all it does. Lockpicking is an incredible skill. And also, for those of you interested in like urban escape and evasion, that kind of thing, being able to get out of zip ties, get out of handcuffs, any kind of restraint, that's a skill. And sadly, I think it's a skill that's going to be handy to have in the months and years to come.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I keep some extra fencing wire, some extra chicken wire. You just never know. If you look at like the Bush War in Rhodesia, the way that the farmers hardened their homes and yet still lived in them comfortably is an interesting thing to look at. And we've had, of course, Dr. John Cronin on the show, who fought in the Bush War in Rhodesia, that shared with us some of those things. Tony says, I'm about to talk around the world with amateur radio, no electric, no internet, no cell phones. Yeah, that's amazing. And that's the one area that I'm definitely lacking. And I know that, and I'm going to have to do something about it very soon.
Me as well. And yeah. I have friends that are ham radio operators, and the places that they're able to talk to, including a couple of them had conversations with the space shuttle or, ISS. And it's really cool, the fact that they have the capability to do that.
Yeah. Going back to 1992 when my first daughter was born, I was in the Med, and this again, 30 years ago, it shows you we didn't have the capability to talk. So the only way that I got to speak to my wife after she delivered was through ham radio operators to our ship. And it was civilian ham radio operators. There was something called the Mars group. And as a Red Cross manager, I made sure that our key high schools that would be used for shelters in the event of some sort of natural disaster, that we had them rigged up. There's something called the Aries group. That's a group of ham radio operators that helps with those kind of things. So Tony says, shoot me a message. I'm going to, brother. You're gonna take care of me, man. I hope, and get me schooled up on that. So thanks again to the 20 folks that are joining us. Jason, I want to ask you this, man. We talked about harder to kill. What is your current EDC?
My current EDC, so I'm carrying a M&P, the subcompact. So I'm also carrying a what is my knife? Zero tolerance. I carry a 511 flashlight. I also carry an ankle med kit. Other than that, I go pretty light. A few other things: keys, wallet, watch. But those things I have on me at all times.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with the idea of being light. I recently watched an interview that Paul Howe gave, and of course, Paul was a Delta operator. And one of the things that he said is he didn't like wearing a lot of body armor. He said, I'm going to use the terrain, the cover that's in concealment that's within my environment. I'm going to move quickly from those pieces of terrain as I advance my tactical position. And I'm better. I feel better being faster than relying on a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, man, absolutely.
Well, and that's we actually have an instructor here, John Hurth from Tier Group. And for your viewers, we're at the Whittington Center, the NRA Whittington Center in Raton, New Mexico. We're here at the Lucid Optics Ballistic Summit. This is a media content generating event. We've got manufacturers, we have media here, instructors, and this is we're pushing the instructors this year, especially. So we have John Hurth, Tier Group, who does small unit tactics, combat tracking, land navigation. He was a special operator in First Group for about 10 years. We also have Caleb Cossey. I know you know who that is. Lone Star Medics, trying to push the medical training. And the big kind of theme of it this year is it's more than just the guns, guys. It's more than the gear. You've got to get the skills. You got to get the training. And these are some of the best in the world of what they do.
Yeah, I like that. It's more than just the gun, guys. I mean, that's a T-shirt right there. You know, every time I say this, I feel like people are probably rolling their eyes, but I mean it with every fiber of my body. And that is, you know, you are the weapon system. And if you are the weapon system, then everything in the desk in front of me becomes a potential tool with which I can exert my will on someone. And I wish more people thought like that, or really thought it, because we're not just talking about the gun. We're talking about, having the ability to do jujitsu, on demand. Because when I travel to Europe, I haven't since COVID. Don't know when I'll be able to get back over there, but you're completely disarmed over there,
right?
Unless you take the skills with you,
right?
And so if you all you have is the gun, man, you probably do feel naked in an environment like that. But if you truly have trained your body and your mind where you are the weapon system, and if I need a weapon, I'll get one. I promise you that.
Right. Well, and it's exactly like you said. We talk about the more skills that you have, the less stuff you need. But it goes back to that. Self-defense it's not about gear. It's not about guns. It's not about whatever. It's a mindset. And it's a lifestyle, and you have to fully immerse yourself in that. You can't just do it part-time. You can't just dabble in it. It's not a hobby. It has to be a lifestyle.
And again, understand when you think about getting into this lifestyle, if you will, what is the why behind it? And I think clearly understand, and of course we talk about this from the firearms instructor side, right, Jason, as far as why are you here? What are you hoping to learn? What is the context in which you're going to put this information, whether you're teaching it to them or the student, and understanding how they're going to contextualize the information you're giving them, right? But I think it's important to understand, like, why am I doing this? Because you may have to sell this to your spouse, right? why I need that new Lucid Optics, babe? Come on, man.
Well, it's simple. The simple answer is self-preservation.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, it's to survive.
That's right. And again, it's like, well, I have 4 children now. Of course, they're adult children at this point, but it's the love for my family. It's the love for our home. It's for the safety of not just myself, but for them as well. That makes me, as a father and as a Christian, want to train myself to be somebody that others would want to rely upon. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's our responsibility. Nobody else is responsible for taking care of us and our families. And that's sadly something that I think has been lost in a lot of our modern society. There's too many outlets of people being taken care of and not being forced to take care of themselves, take responsibility for themselves. And I think that's what really differentiates the people that seek out training and are interested in self-defense, is they're looking to step up and take responsibility.
No, I agree with you. I think we as Americans have lost a lot of the self-reliance, and I think that, that's one of the things that I like about what you're doing is not just emphasis on the gadget, but the emphasis on the spectrum of self-reliance as it relates to safety and protection and self-defense. And that's the way really we should approach it. And because Americans, 100 years ago, you couldn't dial 911. There
Right.
was no phones to dial 911. What did you do? Well, you dealt with it, and then maybe a couple of days later, the sheriff would ride by and make a report 100 years ago.
Right. Well, and you touched on it earlier, and I'm in the same boat. You talk about response times where you live being 30 minutes plus, and that's if you're lucky.
Yeah.
I live in a huge county where we have, maybe 4 or 5 law enforcement officers on duty at any given time, and they may be as far as 60, 70 miles away, over a mountain pass. Well, if something goes down, how long is that going to take for them to get to me? It may be in the hours. So having the skills to be able to defend ourselves, and even more important than that, having the medical skills. Accidents on the farm happen. And if you can't stop the bleeding, you or a loved one might be in trouble.
Yeah. Just to give the listeners an interesting anecdote on that. So Mike and I were teaching this law enforcement group in Montana one time. I won't say where, but it was a small group in the middle of nowhere. And the local sheriff goes, "Hey, we don't have a whole lot of shooters here. I think he had maybe 8 officers, and not all of them were. That's total."
Mm-hmm.
And so there's at any one time there's like 2 on shift, and he's like, "Do you guys mind if I kind of deputize y'all what the week that you're here?" And we're like, "No, by all means." So he's like, "Okay, Rich," and he throws me the keys to that. "Can you take that cruiser right there?" I'm like, "Sure." So yeah, it's amazing. People that live in urban areas don't realize what it's like out here in the rural communities of America.
No, they have no idea, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
Nor I, sir. So Jason, I've kept you on here almost an hour, brother. It's been a great show. What kind of parting thoughts do you have for the listeners this morning?
Just, I hear so many people that are talking about, I want to get trained. I want to get this skill. I want to get that skill. Don't hesitate. Go do it. Don't put it off. Don't get the excuses. Go do it. Because, and you always hear this, and it sounds so cliche, but when the crisis starts, the time to train is over. Don't wait, because when it happens fast.
Yeah, that's exactly right, man. And like we said, tomorrow's the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And now that our enemies are emboldened by the weakness of this administration and things they've allowed to happen in Afghanistan, I think we're in for a bumpy next few years, is just my opinion.
Right. No, I couldn't agree more. So anything that you've been putting off, go get it done.
Yeah, totally agree. Mark Few said, "Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend." Thank you, Mark, for being on the show this morning. Jason, I want to give you a special thank you for coming on the show. It's been amazing, brother. And please let me know if Mike or I can do anything for you in the future.
I appreciate that, Rich.
And where can folks find you and your company?
www.wyotac.com. That'll link you to our Instagram, Facebook. We're on Facebook at Wyotac and Wyotac on Instagram. So
Well, thanks for being a guest on the show, Jason. I look forward to training with you again sometime, brother.
can't wait, Rich. Thanks.
Stay safe, guys. Remember, the fight is coming. Be ready.